Millionaire comes home early and almost faints at what was happening. Michael Bennett never imagined that leaving a meeting 15 minutes early could change his life forever. The 42-year-old businessman had built a real estate empire in New York City through an obsessive routine that started at 5 in the morning and ended after 10 at night. That Thursday afternoon, as he opened the electronic gate of his mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, Michael felt his legs go weak. In the middle of the perfect lawn that had cost a fortune to maintain, there was a huge hole, and inside it, his son Ethan, just 6 years old, was laughing loudly while throwing dirt up into the air. Beside the hole, George, the gardener, was holding a shovel and smiling in a way Michael had never seen in 3 years of employment. "Daddy!" shouted Ethan, his blonde hair covered in dirt. "Look what we're doing. Mr. George said the most beautiful tree in the world is going to grow here." Michael stood frozen in the middle of the cobblestone path, observing a scene that seemed to come from another world. His son, always quiet and well-behaved, was completely filthy, happy in a wild way he had never witnessed. "Mr. Michael." George took his blue cap off his head, nervous. "I can explain, sir. Ethan asked to help me while Miss Jennifer went to get some documents from the office. Daddy, come play with us." Ethan tried to climb out of the hole, but slipped and fell back in, laughing even louder. Michael's heart raced. It wasn't normal to see his son like this. Ethan had always been a serious child, who preferred his games on the tablet to the toys scattered around his huge bedroom. Seeing him like that, free and carefree, awakened something in Michael that he didn't know how to name. "What exactly are you doing?" he asked, trying to keep his voice controlled. "We're planting a mango tree." Ethan clapped his hands, dirtying his face even more. "Mr. George said that when I grow up it will give sweet fruit just for me." George wiped his hands on the apron he always wore while working. He was a man in his 50s, with wrinkles around his eyes that spoke of a life of much sun and hard work. "Actually, Mr. Michael, Ethan asked me if he could help plant something. I thought it wouldn't do any harm. The child spends a lot of time alone." These last words hit Michael like a punch to the stomach. He knew Ethan spent most of his day in the company of the nanny or his mother, but he had never stopped to think about what that meant for the boy. "Daddy, are you going to help too?" Ethan stretched his arms up. "Please." Michael looked at the Italian suit he was wearing, at the leather shoes that cost more than George's monthly salary. How could he explain to a 6-year-old boy that he couldn't get dirty because he had another meeting in 2 hours? "Ethan, you need to take a bath right now. Your mother will be home soon." "But Daddy, we haven't finished yet," the boy pouted. "Mr. George said we need to put fertilizer and some small stones. George can finish by himself. That's what he's here for." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The silence that followed was awkward. George lowered his head, and Ethan climbed out of the hole with slumped shoulders. Michael realized he had ruined something important, but he didn't know exactly what. "Come on, Ethan. Your knees are scraped." "No, they're not, Daddy. Look." The boy showed his dirty knees, which had no scrapes on them. "Mr. George put some soft leaves at the bottom of the hole so I wouldn't get hurt." Michael looked at George, who kept his head down. There was something about that man's dedication that bothered him deeply. It was as if George was taking care of Ethan in a way that he himself, the father, had never bothered to do. "George, I need to speak with you later." "Yes, sir." During dinner, Ethan barely touched his food. He kept telling his mother, Jennifer, about the mango tree and about how George had promised to teach him about all the plants in the garden. "You should have seen it, Mom. Mr. George knows the name of every butterfly that visits the flowers, and he said that if I take good care of the mango tree, it will last more than 100 years. Jennifer smiled, but Michael noticed something different in his wife's expression. It was as if she too was discovering a side of Ethan she hadn't known. "That's wonderful, dear. Tomorrow you can keep helping George." "No, he can't," Michael interrupted. "George has other duties. Ethan needs to focus on his lessons with the tutor." "But Dad..." "No discussion, Ethan." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He stood at the bedroom window looking out at the lit garden, where the hole looked like an open wound in the perfect lawn. Jennifer slept beside him, but he knew she was also restless. The next morning, Michael decided to work from home. He told his secretary he was having computer problems, but the truth was he wanted to observe what happened between Ethan and George. At 8 in the morning, George arrived promptly and began watering the plants. Ethan appeared at the living room window, still in his pajamas, watching the gardener's every move. "Mom, can I go down to see the mango tree?" "Yes, dear, but don't get in the way of George's work." Michael positioned himself at the office window, from where he could see the whole garden. What he witnessed all morning left him completely unsettled. George didn't just tolerate Ethan's presence, he seemed genuinely happy about it. He showed the boy how to identify pests on plants, explained why some flowers only open in the morning, and taught him about the importance of earthworms for the soil. "Look here, Ethan," George pointed to a small trail of ants. "These hard workers are taking food home. Each one has an important job." "Like at Dad's company?" "Yeah, sort of. Only the ants work together, always thinking about the good of the whole family." Michael felt a pang in his chest. It was a subtle but sharp criticism. George was teaching values about teamwork and family that he himself had forgotten to pass on to his son. Around 10 o'clock, Jennifer left to take care of business at the law firm where she worked part-time. George continued his activities, but now Ethan had total freedom to ask questions. "Mr. George, why does my dad never play with me?" The question hit Michael like a bolt of lightning. He moved closer to the window, wanting to hear the answer. George stopped pruning the rosebush and crouched down to the boy's height. "Your father is a very important man, Ethan. He works very hard to give you and your mother the very best of everything." "But I don't want the very best of everything. I want him to teach me how to plant things like you do. Maybe one day he will." "Do you think so?" George was silent for a few seconds, as if carefully choosing his words. "You know, Ethan, sometimes parents take a while to learn that the most important thing isn't the money they make, but the time they spend with their children." Michael felt a lump in his throat. That simple man, who earned a minimum wage, was giving life lessons that he, with all his financial success, couldn't convey to his own son. "Do you have children, Mr. George?" The gardener was quiet for a long moment, nervously fiddling with the handle of his pruning shears. "I had a son, but he is not with me anymore." "Did he travel?" "Yes. He took a very long trip." Michael noticed the pain in George's voice and felt a pang of curiosity mixed with guilt. In 3 years of working together, he had never been interested in the gardener's personal life beyond professional matters. "Is that why you know so much about children?" "Yes, that's why, and that's why I enjoy talking with you so much." Ethan hugged George's legs with all the strength his small hands could muster. The gardener closed his eyes for a moment, as if absorbing the affection. Michael could no longer stay at the window. He went downstairs and stepped out into the garden, pretending to check on the plants. "Good morning, Mr. Michael." George straightened up immediately. "Good morning, how is the mango tree project coming along?" "It's almost ready, sir. I just need to add the fertilizer and plant the sapling." Ethan ran over to Michael and grabbed his hand. "Daddy, you're going to see how beautiful it will be. Mr. George said that when I'm 20 years old, the tree will be huge and full of mangoes." Michael looked at the hole, which was now more organized, with leveled edges and small decorative stones around it. "It looks well done." "Thank you, sir," George smiled, but Michael noticed a sadness deep in his eyes. "Daddy, can you help us plant it?" "I can't get dirty, Ethan. I have an important call soon." "But it's only for 5 little minutes." "Ethan, I already said no. Nathan can finish by himself." The boy let go of his father's hand and went back over near the gardener, visibly disappointed. Michael went back up to his office feeling like the worst father in the world, but too proud to admit it. During the afternoon, Michael tried to focus on work, but his attention was divided between emails and the laughter coming from the garden. Around 3 o'clock, he couldn't resist and went back down. The scene he found left him speechless. Ethan was sitting on the edge of the hole, which now held a small mango tree sapling, while George was telling a story. And then, Little Jack and the beanstalk climbed up to the clouds and discovered the giant wasn't mean. He was just very lonely. Why was he lonely? Because he spent all his time counting gold and precious stones and forgot to make friends. Michael swallowed hard. It couldn't be a coincidence. And what happened next? Jack taught the giant how to plant a garden, and you know why? Because plants need care every day, just like friendship. The giant learned that it's no use having all the riches in the world if you have no one to share them with. And did they become friends? They did, and their garden was the most beautiful in the whole kingdom. Ethan clapped his hands, delighted. Michael realized this wasn't just a story, but a direct message for him. That night during dinner, Ethan was more talkative than ever. "Mom, Mr. George told me a story about a rich giant who had no friends." Jennifer looked at Michael with an expression he knew well. It was the look she gave when she wanted to talk about something serious after Ethan went to sleep. "How interesting, sweetie. And how did the story end?" "The giant learned how to plant and became happy." "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy like to plant?" "Your father has other interests, Ethan." "What interests?" Jennifer and Michael exchanged looks. It was a simple question, but it exposed something very complex. "Work," Michael replied. "But work isn't an interest, it's an obligation," Ethan said, with the brutal honesty of children. After Ethan went to sleep, Jennifer and Michael sat in the living room. The silence between them was heavy. "I need to tell you something," Jennifer began, nervously fidgeting with her hands. "I've been thinking about some changes for a while now." "What kind of changes?" "Michael, when was the last time you played with your son?" I do play. Last Sunday we watched a movie together." "Watching a movie isn't playing, and you were on your phone the whole time." Michael stood up and began pacing the room. "Jennifer, I work to give you all the best. This house, Ethan's private school, his clothes, all of this costs money. I know, and I'm grateful for everything. But Ethan doesn't need more things, Michael. He needs you. He has everything a child could want. He has everything, except a present father." Jennifer's words echoed through the room like a cry for help. Michael stopped pacing and stared at her. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying that you're missing the best years of your son's life. And if you keep this up, one day you'll wake up and he won't want your attention anymore." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Then tell me, what is Ethan's favorite color? What's his favorite toy? What does he dream of being when he grows up?" Michael opened his mouth, but no answer came out. Jennifer continued with tears in her eyes. "George knows all those answers. In 3 years he knows our son better than you do. George is paid to tend the garden, not to be Ethan's friend. Nobody pays someone to love a child, Michael. What George feels for Ethan is genuine. And you know why? Because he's present. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Michael woke up with a decision made. He was going to talk seriously with George and set clear boundaries in his relationship with Ethan. He arrived in the garden before 8 o'clock and waited for the gardener to arrive. When George appeared with his old bicycle, Michael was sitting on a bench near the newly planted hose. "Mr. Michael, I didn't know you were here. We need to talk, George." The gardener approached cautiously, holding his cap in his hands. "Yes, sir." "How long have you worked here?" 3 years and 2 months, sir." "And during that time, have you always been close to Ethan?" George hesitated before answering. "Ethan is a special child, Mr. Michael. He's curious, smart, affectionate." "That's not what I asked." "Sorry, sir. Yes, Ethan has always been friendly with me. Since he was little, he liked to be in the garden." "And did you encourage this closeness?" "Mr. Michael, if you're worried about something." "I am worried. My son is more attached to you than to me." The words came out with more anger than Michael had intended. George lowered his head. "I'm sorry if I caused any trouble, sir. It was never my intention." "What was your intention, then?" George remained silent for a long moment. When he lifted his face, Michael saw tears in his eyes. "Mr. Michael, may I be honest?" "You may." "Ethan reminds me so much of my son, little Alex. They're almost the same age that Alex was when—" George couldn't finish the sentence. Michael felt a pang of curiosity mixed with discomfort. When what? When he passed, sir. It's been 2 years. Passed to where? To heaven, Mr. Michael. Alex was playing in the backyard, just like Ethan loves to play, but there was an accident. Michael felt his blood run cold. George was talking about a son who had passed, and now it was clear what that meant. George, I didn't know. That's why I enjoy talking with Ethan so much, sir. It reminds me that Alex was also curious, also liked plants, also asked a million questions. Why did you never tell me? You never asked about my personal life. And I understand it's normal. The boss doesn't need to know about the employee's life. Michael felt terrible. For 3 years, George had carried an immense pain, and he had never been interested in knowing. Worse still, he was there questioning the only joy the man found in his work. George, Mr. Michael, if you want me to keep my distance from Ethan, I understand. I know it might seem strange. It's not strange. It's complicated. Complicated how, sir? Michael took a deep breath. It was time to be honest. Complicated because you can make my son smile in a way that I can't, and that makes me feel terrible as a father. George looked at him with surprise. Mr. Michael, you are a wonderful father. Ethan talks about you all the time. Talks about what? That you work very hard to give him everything, that he's proud of you, that he wished you had more time to play. He said that? Yes, sir. Ethan doesn't want expensive toys or brand-name clothes. He just wanted you to be more present. The words hit Michael like punches to the stomach. He was working himself to death to give his son things the boy didn't even want. What should I do? May I suggest something, Mr. Michael? You may. How about starting small? 15 minutes a day in the garden learning about the plants. Ethan would be over the moon. But I don't know anything about gardening. I can teach you too. It would be an honor. Michael looked at the mango tree planted the day before. It was small and fragile, but George had assured him that in a few years it would be a leafy tree that would provide shade and fruit. All right, said Michael, surprising himself. But I make the rules. 15 minutes a day after work. Yes, sir, Ethan will be crazy with happiness. That afternoon, when Ethan got home from school, Michael was waiting for him in the garden. The boy couldn't hide his surprise. Daddy, what are you doing here? I came to learn about the mango tree you planted. Ethan ran and jumped into Michael's arms, who realized it was the first time in months that his son had shown him so much affection. Really, Daddy? You're going to learn how to take care of the plants? I am. But you'll have to teach me because I don't know anything about these things. Mr. George knows everything. He can teach us together. Michael looked at George, who was smiling discreetly while organizing the tools. All right, let's get started. During the first few days, Michael felt clumsy in the garden. His hands, used only to papers and computers, didn't know how to handle soil, water, and plants. But Ethan had endless patience and celebrated every small progress his father made. Daddy, look, you're watering just like I learned from Mr. George. Am I? You are. Slowly and near the root, so we don't waste water. Michael smiled, realizing he was learning not just about gardening, but about how to be a father through his son's eyes. George kept a low profile, offering tips when necessary, but letting father and son discover things together. Michael began to notice the wisdom of that man, who knew exactly when to step closer and when to step away. 1 week after the first gardening lesson, Michael came home from work and found Ethan crying in his room. What happened, son? Nothing. Ethan wiped his eyes quickly. Tell your dad. It's just, some boys at school are saying our garden is ugly because it has a big hole in the middle. Michael felt anger towards those children's parents, who had certainly made nasty comments that their kids repeated. And what do you think about our garden? I think it's the most beautiful in the world. The mango tree is going to grow and give fruit just for us. Then what does anyone else's opinion matter? Ethan smiled timidly. It doesn't matter at all, right? It doesn't matter at all. And you know what? Tomorrow we're going to plant more trees. How about a jaboticaba tree? Can we, Daddy? We can. And we're going to make the prettiest garden in the area. That night, Michael researched different types of fruit trees and made a list of the ones that could be planted in his garden. For the first time in years, he was planning something that had nothing to do with work. Jennifer noticed the change immediately. "You're different." "What do you mean?" "More present. Ethan can hardly stop talking about the gardening classes. It's good to see him happy." "And you? Are you happy too?" Michael thought about the question. Happiness was a word he hadn't used in a long time. "I'm calmer. Those 15 minutes in the garden are like meditation." "And how is your relationship with George?" "Better. He's a wise man. I'm learning a lot from him. Only about gardening. About gardening and about being a father." Jennifer smiled and kissed her husband on the forehead. "I'm proud of you." The following weekend, Michael cancelled a work meeting and spent the whole morning in the garden with Ethan and George. They planted 3 new trees and created a small herb bed. "Daddy, did you know that basil keeps mosquitoes away?" "I didn't. That's so cool." "And lavender helps you sleep better. Mr. George said we can make sachets to put in our pillows." Michael looked at George, who was teaching Ethan how to make small holes to plant sunflower seeds. "George, do you have other clients besides us?" "Yes, I do, Mr. Michael. I take care of 5 other gardens in the area." "And do they know how special you are?" George stopped what he was doing and looked at Michael with surprise. "Special? The dedication you have for the plants, for the people, that's not common." "Thank you, Mr. Michael. That means a lot to me." Ethan ran up to the 2 of them with an earthworm in his hand. "Daddy, look, a garden helper." Michael, who would normally be disgusted, managed to smile and even gently touch the worm. "It will help make the soil better for the plants, right?" "That's right. You're learning super fast." At that moment, Michael realized he had found something he'd been looking for years without knowing it, the simplicity of genuine moments with his son. During lunch, Ethan drew a picture of the family in the garden. On the page, 3 figures were smiling, surrounded by trees and flowers. In the upper corner, a big yellow sun lit up the scene. "Who are these people, Ethan?" "It's the 3 of us. You, me, and Mr. George." "Is George part of the family too?" "Of course. He takes care of us like family does." Michael looked at the drawing and felt a lump in his throat. With a few simple strokes, Ethan had captured something he was just beginning to understand. Family isn't defined just by blood, but by care, presence, and love. "It's a beautiful drawing, son. Can I give it to Mr. George?" "Of course, he'll be very happy." On Monday, when Michael returned to work, he noticed his routine had completely changed. He left the office at 5 on the dot, something he hadn't done in years. "Mr. Bennett," said his secretary, Ms. Margaret, "you forgot about the meeting with the Japanese investors." "I didn't forget, Margaret. I rescheduled it for tomorrow morning. But they came especially for today." And I explained that I have an unbreakable commitment. Ms. Margaret, who had worked with Michael for over 10 years, couldn't hide her surprise. It was the first time she had seen him prioritize something above work. "May I ask what that commitment is, sir?" "A gardening class with my son." The secretary smiled. She had always thought Michael worked too much and that Ethan needed his father more. "That's wonderful, Mr. Bennett. Ethan must be loving it." "He is, and so am I." When Michael got home, he found Ethan and George looking at the mango tree with magnifying glasses. "What are you 2 doing?" "Looking for little bugs on the leaves," Ethan shouted excitedly. "Mr. George said some plants tell you when they're sick." "How so?" "Look here, Mr. Michael." George pointed to a small yellow spot on a leaf. "This different color can mean the plant needs more water, or that some insect is attacking it." "It's like the plants are talking, Daddy." Michael picked up the magnifying glass and looked at the leaf up close. It was fascinating to discover that there was a whole microscopic world happening right there. "And is this plant sick?" "No, sir, it's healthy, but it's good to check always." "Just like we go to the doctor for a checkup," Ethan completed. "Exactly, Ethan, you are very clever." That day, Michael learned about aphids, scale insects, and ladybugs. He discovered that there are insects that help plants and others that harm them, and that balance is fundamental for a healthy garden. You know, Ethan, a garden is like life. It needs care, balance, and patience. Mr. George always says that. Michael looked at George with admiration. That man turned every gardening lesson into a life lesson. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. 3 weeks after the gardening lessons began, Michael realized that his relationship with Ethan had completely changed. The boy would run to hug him when he arrived from work and always had news to share about the plants. "Daddy, you know what happened today? 3 sunflowers were born." "Really? Can I see?" "Of course. They are still very tiny, but Mr. George said they will grow tall like you." In the garden, Michael was moved to see 3 little green sprouts emerging from the soil. It was incredible to think that just a few weeks ago, that was just empty dirt. "It's a miracle," he murmured. "What's a miracle, Daddy?" "It's when something very special happens, like these plants being born and growing." Ethan became thoughtful. "So you and me becoming friends was a miracle too?" The question caught Michael by surprise. He looked at his son, with his blue eyes shining with sincerity, and felt his heart tighten. "Yes, son, the greatest miracle of my life." Ethan smiled and held Michael's hand. "I always wanted to be your friend, Daddy, but you were always busy." "And now? Do you still think I'm too busy?" "No. Now you are my best friend along with Mr. George." That night, Michael couldn't stop thinking about his son's words. How had he lost so much time focused only on work? How many precious moments had he wasted? The next day, Michael woke up with an idea. He looked for Jennifer before she left for the office. "Jennifer, how about we do a renovation in the garden?" "What kind of renovation?" "I want to create a special space for Ethan, a little corner where he can plant whatever he wants with tools his size." "Michael, that's wonderful. Ethan will be over the moon with happiness. And I want to make a surprise for George, too." "What do you have in mind?" "I'm going to build a small greenhouse. He mentioned he would like to grow orchids but needs a controlled environment." Jennifer looked at her husband with admiration. "You really have changed, Michael. And you know something?" "What?" "Ethan isn't the only one who is happier. You are too." It was true. Michael felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. Work was still important, but it was no longer the center of his existence. During the following days, Michael hired a landscaping company to create Ethan's special flower bed and build the greenhouse for George. But he made sure the construction work didn't interfere with the daily time he spent in the garden with his son. "Daddy, why are there people working in our garden?" "It's a surprise, son. You'll see when it's all finished." "A surprise for me?" "For you and for George." Ethan clapped his hands, excited. It was impossible not to be infected by that child's pure joy. When the work was finished, Michael organized a small inauguration ceremony. He invited Jennifer, Ethan, George, and even Miss Margaret, his secretary, who always asked about the gardening lessons. "George, this is my gift for you." Michael showed him the small but well-equipped greenhouse. "For your orchids." George was speechless. His eyes filled with tears, and he hugged Michael without ceremony. "Mr. Michael, I don't know what to say. No one has ever done something like this for me." "You have done so much for our family, George. It's little compared to everything you have given us." "And what about me, Daddy? What's my surprise?" Michael led Ethan to a raised garden bed, perfect for a child's height, with small tools and a colorful watering can. "This is your special garden, Ethan. All your own. You can plant whatever you want here." Ethan ran along the new garden bed, touching the smooth wood of the edges and testing the tools. "It's the most beautiful garden in the world. And you know what else? I'm going to help you take care of it every day." That afternoon, Michael, Ethan, and George planted the first seedlings in the special bed: lettuces, arugulas, carrots, and radishes, plants that grow quickly and would give Ethan the satisfaction of seeing results soon. "Daddy, how long until the lettuce is ready to eat?" "What do you think, George?" "About 6 weeks, Ethan, if we take good care of it." "So at my birthday party, can we make a salad with our lettuce?" Michael calculated mentally. Ethan's birthday was in 2 months. The timing would be perfect. "Yes, son, we'll make the most delicious salad in the world." During the following weeks, Michael kept religiously to his schedule in the garden. He would get home from work, change his clothes and go straight to Ethan's garden bed. It had become the best part of his day. One afternoon, Jennifer found them laughing as they struggled with a hose that had malfunctioned. What happened here? The hose sprayed water right in Daddy's face. Ethan couldn't stop laughing. Michael was soaked, with dirt stuck to his face and hair, but he was smiling like a child. The connection was loose. When I tightened it, a jet of water shot straight into my face. You should have seen it, Mum. Daddy made a really funny face. Jennifer took her phone and took a picture of the two of them. In the picture, Michael is wet and dirty, but with an expression of pure joy that she hadn't seen in years. This photo is going in the living room frame. Jennifer, I look awful. You look happy. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. That night, Michael looked at the photo on Jennifer's phone. He really did look different. There was something in his expression he hadn't seen in a long time. Spontaneity. The next month, Ethan started bringing friends from school to see the garden. Michael was surprised by the pride his son showed when pointing out the plants to the other children. This is the garden bed my father made for me, Ethan explained to Alex, a classmate. And this is the lettuce we planted together. Your father knows how to plant things? He does. He learned from Mr. George, who is very smart. And now we take care of the garden every day. Michael, who was listening to the conversation from the window, felt a pride different from what he felt with his professional achievements. It was a deeper pride, more meaningful. Alex was impressed with the orchid greenhouse and the variety of plants in the garden. When his parents came to pick him up, they asked to see the space. What an incredible garden, Alex's mother commented. Ethan told us you take care of all this together. It's true, Michael smiled. It has been a wonderful experience. Ethan is so lucky to have such a present father. Michael looked at Ethan, who was playing with Alex among the plants, and realized that he was the lucky one. 1 week before Ethan's birthday, the first lettuces from the special bed were ready for harvest. Michael came home from work and found his son examining the green leaves with a magnifying glass. Daddy, I think they're ready to be picked. Let's get the expert's opinion. Michael called George, who was watering the orchids in the greenhouse. George, what do you think? Are they ready? George examined the lettuces carefully. They're perfect, Ethan. Big, green, and crisp. Congratulations. Ethan did a little celebratory dance that made Michael and George laugh. Can I pick one to show Mommy? You may, son, but be careful not to damage the root. With delicate gestures he had learned during his lessons, Ethan harvested his first lettuce. It was small compared to the ones from the supermarket, but to him it was the most beautiful in the world. Daddy, can I take it to show Grandma? Michael thought of his mother, Mrs. Barbara, who lived in an apartment in the city centre. She always criticized the time he dedicated to work and said she missed her grandson. How about we invite Grandma for lunch here on Sunday? She can see the whole garden. Really? She'll love it. On Sunday, Mrs. Barbara arrived curious to see the famous garden that Ethan wouldn't stop mentioning on the phone calls. Grandma, look. Ethan led her through the space like a tour guide. This is my mango tree. This is my special flower bed. And here are Mr. George's orchids. Mrs. Barbara was impressed not just with the plants, but with the transformation in her son. Michael was relaxed, smiling, and completely focused on Ethan. Michael, I can't believe it's really you taking care of all this. Why not? Because you always hated getting dirty. Remember when you were little and I tried to take you to play in the park? People change, Mum. This isn't change, this is a miracle. During lunch, prepared with ingredients from their own garden, Mrs. Barbara couldn't stop praising the salad. This lettuce is delicious, so fresh, so sweet. I planted it, Grandma. Really? What a smart grandson I have. Michael watched the interaction between his mother and his son and realized something he had missed for years, the importance of simple, genuine family bonds. After lunch, Mrs. Barbara pulled Michael aside for a private conversation. Son, I wanted to tell you something. What is it, Mum? I'm very proud of you. Because of the garden? Because of the change. You've recovered something you had lost, the ability to be happy with simple things. Michael felt his eyes well up. Mom, I almost lost Ethan. But you didn't. And now you have a whole lifetime to make up for lost time. Sometimes I regret taking so long to realize, Michael, regret is a waste of time. The important thing is that you realized and changed. Ethan won't remember the years you were absent. He'll remember these moments you are building now. The following week, it was Michael's turn to receive an unexpected call at the office. Michael, it's Nathan, Alex's father. Remember me? Of course, Nathan. Is everything all right? Everything's great. Look, I wanted to ask you a bit of a strange favor. Go ahead. Could you teach me about gardening? Alex won't stop talking about you planting together, and I realized I never do anything hands-on with my son. Michael smiled. The transformation that had happened in his life was inspiring other fathers. Of course, Nathan. How about coming over to my house on Saturday? George can teach us together. Really? That would be fantastic. On Saturday, Nathan arrived with Alex and 2 other fathers who also wanted to learn. Michael's garden turned into a small family gardening school. Everyone, George addressed the group. The first thing about gardening is patience. Plants have their own time. Just like children, commented one of the fathers, making everyone laugh. Exactly. And just like children, plants respond better to affection than to haste. For the next 2 hours, the fathers learned about different types of soil, planting seasons, and basic care. But the most important lesson wasn't technical. You know what I learned? Nathan commented at the end. That gardening is an excuse to spend quality time with our kids. It's not an excuse, Michael corrected. It's an opportunity. After the encounter, Michael realized he had discovered something greater than the pleasure of planting. He had discovered the pleasure of sharing knowledge and inspiring other families. That night, he talked with Jennifer about an idea that was forming in his head. Jennifer, what if we created a project to teach gardening to parents and children? What do you mean? Weekend workshops, right here at home. George could be the main instructor, and I would help with the organizational part. Michael, are you serious? Completely. I think many parents are in the same situation I was in, focused on work and missing precious moments with their children. Jennifer hugged her husband. It's a beautiful idea, and I'm sure it will work. The family garden project started small, with 4 families per workshop. But within a few months, Michael had to limit the number of participants because the demand was so high. George was radiant in his new role as an educator. He discovered he had a natural talent for teaching and that his life experience gave weight to his words. You know, Mr. Michael, I never thought my pain could help other people. What do you mean? Losing little Alex taught me the value of simple moments, and now I can teach that to other parents before they lose time like I did. Michael looked at George with admiration. That man had transformed his greatest tragedy into a life mission. George, have you ever thought about formalizing this knowledge? Making a course? Writing a book? I don't know how to write well, Mr. Michael. But I do. How about we write it together? For Ethan's birthday, the party was in the garden. 20 children ran among the plants, played in the special flower bed, and made a collective salad with the vegetables the families had planted in the workshops. Daddy, this is the best birthday party of my life. Ethan hugged Michael tightly. Why, son? Because you are here with me. Really here. Michael looked around and saw something he had never imagined. Dozens of happy people in a space he had helped create. Parents playing with children, kids learning about plants, and George at the center of it all, smiling as if it were the birthday of the son he had lost. Ethan, can I tell you a secret? Yes. This is the best birthday party of my life, too. 6 months after the workshops began, Michael received a proposal to expand the project. An education company wanted to fund the creation of therapeutic gardens in public schools. What do you think, George? I think it would be wonderful, Mr. Michael. Imagine how many children we could help. And would you agree to be the general coordinator of the project? Me? But I don't have an education. You have something better, experience and heart. George accepted the challenge, and Michael reduced his workload at the real estate company to dedicate part of his time to the social project. Michael, are you sure? Jennifer asked. It's a radical change in our financial life. I'm sure. We've always had money. Purpose is new. In the first year of the Family Seeds project, gardens were created in 15 schools. Michael closely followed the transformation in each one: aggressive children who calmed down by caring for plants, absent parents who discovered ways to connect with their children, teachers who found new ways to teach. "Daddy, you're famous." Ethan showed him a newspaper article about the project. "Not famous, son. Useful." "What's the difference?" "Famous is when everyone knows your name. Useful is when you make a difference in people's lives." Ethan thought for a moment. "Then I want to be useful when I grow up." "Good choice, son." 2 years after the day Michael found Ethan playing in the hole with George, the family's life had changed completely. The real estate company continued to thrive under the management of capable partners, but Michael had found his true calling. The mango tree planted on the first day was tall and strong, giving its first flowers. Ethan, now 8 years old, had become a little plant expert and helped George with the children's workshops. "George, do you think Alex would approve of what we're doing?" Michael asked one afternoon as they prepared material for a workshop. "I'm sure he would, Mr. Michael. Alex always liked helping other children. You speak of him in the present tense." "That's because for me, he is still present. Every time I see a child discovering the pleasure of planting, I remember the sparkle in Alex's eyes." Michael understood that George had found a healthy way to keep his son's memory alive, turning pain into purpose. "You know, George, I learned something important from you." "What, Mr. Michael?" "That you don't need to be a biological father to care for a child. What matters is the love you offer." George smiled and put his hand on Michael's shoulder. "And I learned that it's never too late to be a good father." "You are proof of that." That night, Michael found Ethan in the garden whispering to the mango tree. "What are you doing, son?" "Telling her about my day. Mr. George said plants like conversation." Michael approached the tree and touched its still thin trunk. "And what did you tell her?" "That today I helped 3 children plant their first tomatoes, and that I'm very happy because you are always here with me." "I will always be, Ethan, I promise. Even when you get old, like Alex's grandpa. Even when I get old, and you know why?" "Why?" "Because now I know what the most important thing in life is." "What is it?" "Being present for the moments that matter." Ethan smiled and hugged the mango tree. "Tree, thank you very much for teaching my father to be my friend." Michael felt tears in his eyes. A tree had changed his life. Or rather, the decision to plant a tree with his son had changed his life. 5 years had passed since that afternoon, when Michael almost fainted upon finding Ethan in the hole. The mango tree was lush, 6 feet tall, and bearing its first sweet fruits. The Family Seeds project had expanded to over 100 schools in 3 states. Ethan, now 11, had become a young speaker, telling other children how gardening brought him and his father closer. George led a team of educators and had written, with Michael's help, a therapeutic gardening manual used in universities. "Daddy, do you regret changing your life so much?" Ethan asked one Saturday morning as they harvested ripe mangoes. "I regret only one thing, son." "What?" "That it took me so long to change." Ethan bit into a mango and smiled with his face smeared with sweet juice. "But if you had changed earlier, maybe things wouldn't be the same. Maybe we wouldn't have gotten to know Mr. George properly." Michael was impressed by his son's wisdom. "Do you think everything has its right time?" "I do. Just like plants. The mango tree only bore fruit now because it was ready. And I only became a good father now because I was ready? Yes. And you know what? It was worth the wait." That afternoon, Michael organized a surprise party for George. It was the 5th anniversary of the first mango tree planted, but also a tribute to the man who had changed their lives. More than 50 families who had participated in the workshops were present. Children ran among the trees they had helped plant, parents exchanged gardening experiences, and at the center of it all was George, surrounded by affection and gratitude. "George," Michael addressed the gathering, "5 years ago, this man taught me that true wealth isn't in what we possess, but in what we cultivate. He taught me how to be a father. He taught me how to be present. He taught me that small gestures can create enormous transformations." George was emotional, trying not to cry in front of so many people. "Mr. Michael, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because you saved my family, and not just mine. All these families here are proof that your wisdom and your kindness have the power to change lives. The children began singing a song they had created about gardening, and George could no longer hold back his tears. Alex would be proud of you, Michael whispered in his friend's ear. He is proud, George replied. I'm sure of it. When the party ended and the last guests had left, Michael, Jennifer, Ethan, and George sat beneath the mango tree, watching the garden illuminated by the soft evening light. Daddy, Ethan broke the silence, when I grow up and have children, I'm going to teach them everything I learned here. And what do you most want to teach them? That love isn't something we just talk about. It's something we do, every day. Michael looked at Jennifer, who was smiling with tears in her eyes. He looked at George, who was observing the plants as one admires works of art. He looked at Ethan, who had become a wise and happy boy. You know, son, you're already a great teacher. How so? You taught me the most important lesson of my life. Which one? That we don't need grand gestures to be happy. It's enough to be present in the small magical moments of everyday life. Ethan stood up and hugged Michael tightly. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, son. Very much. George got up to water some plants, and Michael realized that daily ritual had become a silent prayer of gratitude. Jennifer came closer and held his hand. Proud of you, she whispered. Of all of us, Michael replied. We built something beautiful together. When night had fully fallen, Ethan had fallen asleep in Michael's lap beneath the mango tree. George finished watering the plants and approached. Mr. Michael, can I ask a question? Of course. Do you believe in fate? Michael thought for a moment. I used to believe only in hard work and planning. Now I believe that sometimes the universe conspires to put the right people in the right place, at the right time. It's just that I keep thinking, if I hadn't lost Alex, maybe I never would have gotten to know all of you properly. And if I hadn't been a workaholic, maybe I never would have realized the value of simple moments. So all the pain was worth it? Michael looked at Ethan sleeping in his arms, breathing calmly after a day full of discoveries and joy. All the pain was worth it. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're reading this from. If you have any similar experience to share with us, leave it there in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Michael made the right decisions by changing his priorities? We would love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company.